My name is Kate Whitfield, and I'm a principal with Alta Planning and Design. I'm a professional engineer and urban planner based in Ottawa. This video was created to help people looking for jobs in Canada to connect with CITE members who are working in the field of transportation, engineering, and planning. Without conferences and other chances to meet in person, it's important to create these opportunities to help people network in these times. We've invited people who are currently employed in the public and private sectors to come together for these informal chats. I also invited 3 job seekers to share something of interest to them. Hopefully, what comes out of these short talks is a sense of what transportation jobs are like in Canada, and for those looking for work, a better sense of what might interest them. And then a bonus element of hearing about interesting topics in transportation in Canada. And then some networking intel, some sort of job search tips. My hope is that some of the information shared here could be used by someone looking for work to better connect through LinkedIn or otherwise. Maybe something is said here that could open a door to a job. For more information on the people featured in this video, check out the YouTube page. Our hope is that new videos are released periodically over the next sort of few weeks and months. The CITE website has more information on how to get involved. So let's get going and see what the participants in today's episode have to share. I'd like to welcome everyone to the second episode of CITE Career Connects. I'm going to go through a group for a quick round of hellos before we dive in. So to the job seekers first. Jessica, could you introduce yourself with your name and where you're located?
Hi everyone, my name is Jessica. I'm a grad student at the University of Waterloo and just finishing up my thesis right now.
Wonderful. And Abir, where are you?
Hello everyone, I'm from Edmonton. I have just completed my MS from University of Alberta in the field of transportation engineering. So right now I'm just looking for a good opportunity. So right now I'm staying in Edmonton.
Wonderful. And Drishya. Did I say that right?
Drishya.
Drishya, sorry.
No worries. Hello everyone, I'm Drishya. I just finished my master's in cities engineering from University of Toronto, and I'm currently located in Toronto, and I'm looking for job opportunities. And I recently graduated in June.
Wonderful. So James, I'm going to move over to you. So we're going to go through the CITE members who are currently working in the field of transportation engineering and planning in Canada.
So hello, I'm James Donnelly. I'm a transportation engineer and principal at Urban Systems, and I'm in Kelowna, British Columbia.
Wonderful. And Raphael?
Hi everyone, my name is Raphael. I'm a graduate of Moore College, currently working in the city of Ottawa as a transportation, as an electronic control system technologist.
Great. And John?
So I'm John Mcgill. I'm a transportation professional, been around working for both public sector and private sector, and it's been great experience working with CITE. I've been a Canadian president for CITE and a member of TAC, and it's a really great profession to be part of, and I'm really looking forward to meeting some of these young professionals coming in. Kate, great idea for this.
Awesome. Okay, so everyone knows how this goes. It's 2 minutes, introduce a topic of interest for you. I'm going to introduce each person before you speak, and hopefully don't have to enforce a 2-minute limit, but we're just going to fly through and hopefully hear some interesting things going on in Canada. So we're going to get the conversation going with James. But first, an introduction. So James is a principal and senior transportation engineer at Urban Systems. He mentioned there that he's based in Kelowna, but he got there in a roundabout way. His roots are New Brunswick. And looking at his resume, there was some time in New York State, so maybe we can hear about that later. James and I are both University of New Brunswick grads, which is one reason he's a friend here on an early episode. Love UNB. So there you go, James. You go first.
Sure, thanks, Kate. Yeah, just for a topic, something that I've been interested in and looking at for the last couple of years, but it's definitely ramped up in 2020 here. It's just data. So with lots of the transportation plans and projects that we're working on, it's really based on data. And in the past, we've done a lot of amazing things with very thin amounts of good information. But right now, there's just some really great things with new technology, especially through mobile devices. There's a lot of new companies out there that are providing transportation data, mobility data, travel pattern analysis, all that kind of stuff in totally different ways than we're used to. And it's really opened up a lot of possibilities in terms of what we can do, in terms of just, as opposed to looking at something based on, a single day of time, now we can look at things over many, days and weeks and months and even years now. And then now with COVID, this is the other big challenge we have. The last, almost 6 months now has basically been not a very good time to collect data. So we're really looking at all these other options in terms of like, how can we dig back in time and today and see, what's out there. And so it's really ramped up, and it's been a really interesting opportunity just in terms of taking the work that we've done, for many years now and looking at it in a slightly different way. So I think that's a nice opportunity for people kind of coming into this industry, is that things like that are changing, and it's pretty cool.
That's great. Next person in the list is Jessica. We'll ask you to be the first speaker for the job seeker. So Jessica is finishing up a Master's of Applied Science in Civil from University of Waterloo. Her research focuses on road safety analysis. I'm just getting to know you, Jessica, but I'm going to guess you're a pretty awesome TA at Waterloo. Man, you've had a good lineup of co-op placements in public and private sector, which is going to really set you up after grad school. So just excited to hear what you're going to share today for your 2 minutes.
Thanks, Kate. And I just wanted to spend some time to thank everyone else on this panel for taking the time to actually share your experiences and your projects. So for me, as Kate said, that my research is based on road safety analysis. So just some background about my research itself. Traditionally, road safety analysis uses the collision as a fundamental indicator of safety. So we actually have to wait for collisions to happen, and any safety improvements are a reaction to these collisions. And because they're rare and infrequent events, it might take a long time to actually collect enough data to make statistically significant results. So if we want to prevent these collisions from happening, why are we working reactively when we can be proactive? So that's what my research is actually trying to solve by using video-based traffic conflict analysis. So I want you to know the difference between what a conflict is and what a collision is. A collision is when two objects collide, and a conflict is a near miss. So think about that time you're trying to cross the street and you were nearly run over by a car. That's a conflict, and they happen all the time. So conflict analysis as a technique has been around since the 1960s, where human observers would go out to intersections and manually collect data and observe these conflicts that happen at intersections or on road entities. But as you can imagine, having to go outside and collect data for hours on end becomes a bit labor intensive. Until now, thanks to improvements in camera quality and computing power, we can actually automate the process to collect this data and use commercially available products like a GoPro to collect the video data. So previously, and actually currently, traffic cameras are used to monitor congestion and to actually monitor real-time road conditions in cities and in municipalities. But with video-based conflict analysis, we can actually automatically extrapolate a hypothetical crash course and calculate a potential time to collision. The shorter the time to a collision, the higher the safety risk. And being able to monitor all these conflicts, which are much more frequent and less injury causing than actual collisions, which are costly, fairly infrequent, and sometimes fatal, we can collect a lot more data on these safety trends and actually have a better way of evaluating safety risk. So this video information can actually give us a lot of information about the speed of these vehicles, the traffic volumes that we see on the road, and the angle of collisions, which all have an impact on safety trends. And what I'm doing right now is just creating regression models and statistical analysis on that data. So, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. And there's a lot of CITE members that love video analysis of like, I could see James smiling. There's a lot of people that's really great and really, really relevant. So Raphael, you're next. You're coming from the city of Ottawa with that title, Electronic Control Systems Technologist. And before that, you had your time with Brampton Transit. We want to thank you for coming today to represent the public sector, but let's hear what you have to share in your 2 minutes.
Okay, I graduated from Mohawk College 2019 in December, and we're just waiting to make application into into jobs when COVID started. So, but for me, I didn't really put much into it because I'm actually fascinated with the road safety conditions, and we did some reviews in school that helped me prepare for road safety. Like we did reviews for in-service road conditions, which are supposed to help to improve safety analysis and collisions. We also studied effective evaluation of right turn lane design modification to see how we could improve safety in regards to right turn lanes and the safety of right turn lanes because of the increase of rear end collision and on right turn lanes. Well, putting all that into facts, as soon as I graduated, I didn't have to wait to get a job in safety. I applied to all the possible opportunity I can have, and I was called to come do a temporary position in Ottawa for electronic control system technologies, which I'm doing now, which involved the installation of controllers and traffic signals, and I've done a few things that I could be very proud of because they're challenging, even though it is in transportation, but it's not actually my field. I have to bend over to do some electronic work. So right now I'm still doing that to just get improved until I have a position in transportation safety where I can actually implement some of the knowledge I acquired from college.
Absolutely. Well, it's road safety is obviously a theme today. It's fun too, because when I pick everybody, I don't necessarily know what they're going to talk about. I can guess. We can obviously see some themes here. So the next person to speak will be Abir. So, and also a recent grad, but this time a master's from University of Alberta, and is actively looking for an entry-level job in the civil transportation industry. But I will say, if I have it right, you're the ITE University of Alberta chapter secretary. Yes. So you're sort of already on a smart track there of volunteerism with ITE out of your school chapter, which is an important part of networking, and hopefully we can help connect you to more people today, Abir. So if you could start your 2-minute intro, that'd be great.
Thank you so much, Kate. And first of all, thank you everyone for joining this meeting today. And I have recently graduated and I've just completed my master's in transportation engineering from University of Alberta. So as it was MH program, so I have done many projects here while doing the course and also the capstone. I don't have any thesis based, so it was a course based course. Like for the capstone project, I did safety evaluation for the CFIs in the San Antonio, Texas. So it was like it was a continuous flow intersection built in Texas in 2014. So we just collected the data from 2010 to 2018, then developed the model using the SPF and everything, the SAS computing analysis. Then we found out that because of the CFI, the crashes has decreased and it has improved the safety in the San Antonio intersections, which was previously a normal simple intersection, which was later converted to a CFI. CFI is basically displaced left turn, so that helped a lot reducing the collisions there. And also, other than the safety projects, I've also done projects in like traffic operation. Like in Edmonton, we did the optimization of the traffic signal here from the 10 streets here in the downtown Edmonton. So we just improved the signal timing and reduced the red time also, and it helped a lot. Like it was approved by the city also, like they appreciated it like we decreased the traffic congestion also. And in safety, I did another project like in Edmonton, in a specific street. We did the safety analysis, like how to improve the safety. Like we also did some projects with the traffic modeling. It's with the data from the Minnesota, USA. So that was a tough project. Like I had to use the ArcGIS, which was a new software which I used here for the first time. So it was a mixed bundle of the transportation industry, like more traffic operation, safety, then highways. Like you, we use the Civil 3D for
Okay.
designing the roadways. So it was a mixed bundle of experience. So it was a great experience in doing the MN. And also while doing my MN, I was doing part-time, like helping the engineers in traffic survey in the
Yeah.
company Bunton Associates. So it was a good experience.
Yeah. And it's interesting to hear that list of experiences through school and through work. And I find that traffic signal expertise seems to come up a lot too in what people are looking for. And it's really interesting to see that sort of part of sort of what companies need. So our next speaker is John Mcgill. So he's based out of the GTA for Wood. The title on his LinkedIn says Strategy and Development Lead. But I would give John lots of other titles. I would say John would know everyone who works in the field in the province of Ontario. Is that a fair? We might go broader. So you heard earlier, John was the president of CITE. He's also my former coworker. But when you meet John, or you meet someone who says, "Oh yeah, I used to work with John once," is a very common sentence. So no pressure, John. You have to be amazing in your 2 minutes. Pick something interesting and tell us about it. Just one.
Well, I found, the topics that have come by so far very interesting, and I felt like saying something about those. But first off, I'm a Waterloo grad myself, and my daughter is a Mohawk grad. So really, real connected with the people on the call today. What I really wanted to talk about was the comparison of my experience in the public sector versus the private sector. And I started my career with a tenure at the Ministry of Transportation of Ontario. And we learned a lot. There was a lot of exciting opportunities to do research work at the time with their traffic systems, their FTMS systems, as they were sort of getting introduced and getting a chance to work with municipalities with their traffic control systems. I found that to be a little bit a step removed from the general public. So I moved to a municipality where I really, really enjoyed the contact with the public and the relationship that transportation has with not only land use planning, economic development, but the community's interest in general. Because too often, I think we learn about engineering from our training, but when we get to see it, in front of affecting people's lives and in front of their properties, it's a different perspective. And since I've left the public sector into the private sector, I've pretty much concentrated on municipal projects, where I think I get a lot of satisfaction from the fact that I'm helping communities be better places to live. And that's why I sort of spend a lot of time with people like Kate, because I really believe that the future of the transportation right away is not just constrained to the traffic operations, but it's now becoming placemaking, active transportation, healthy environment. And I really think that our industry is going to be one of the leaders in transitioning communities to being great places to live. So I get excited when I meet young people like yourselves as to what the future can hold and how you see the future unfolding. Because I think it's really telling when we hear what people expect. You know, cycling, walking, all those things in Canada is a real challenge, but it's becoming more and more the norm. And I really get excited from that, Kate.
Yeah, but it's also
So I
fun
think
to
that's
think,
what
John, how much, like, we could talk about it when we get into the questions, but how much time do you spend at a computer in a technical meeting, in a public meeting, writing something public, writing something that you're trying to get buy-in from technical? We can go into that later, but I think of that also when I look at you and I think of what your job is or what it's changed over time, right? And it's a really interesting part of what our typical days are like. But before we do that, we have our last speaker. Yeah, you've been patient, Drishya. So a recent grad, but master's in cities in engineering and management. I might have picked that if it's in there at the time. From the University of Toronto. I like it. So now I want to give you the shout out to be the first person to do this who just connected with me on LinkedIn. Didn't meet in advance, didn't know in advance. You just said, I want in, which I love that. And that's a little bit of networking, is just throwing yourself out there. So props to you for just saying, Kate, here, sign me up. So I love that enthusiasm. So if you could just share with us sort of your 2 minutes of something to tell us about.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Drishya. I did Masters in Cities Engineering and Management, which is very unique. Even I found that very unique. But I come from a civil engineering background. And after my graduation, I decided that I didn't want to get into something very technical. And I wanted to enter the planning side of the industry. And that's why I found this program as the perfect bridge between both industries. And I'm originally from India, and I wasn't really interested in transportation in the very beginning. But during my graduation, I got a part-time job at the university, and it's the Transportation Research Institute at my university as an events and communication assistant. And during this role, I was exposed to a lot of the seminars that happened, and one of my mandate was to attend these seminars and write reports about it. And these seminars were presented by many industry professionals, and mostly like the huge giant industries. And these representatives used to come and talk about their projects and what they're doing. And that's how I actually kind of got interested in it. I thought transportation was all about modeling, but turns out it's not. There's another side to it too. So that's the kind of side I got really interested in. And I started to learn a lot about it. And during mine is not a very thesis-based program. It was a professional program. And during my entire 2-year scenario, I picked various courses. I tried design, I tried transportation, I tried policy making, because I was kind of in the exploring mode. And I think it's like, as a new professional, I don't want to really stick to one field. I want to explore everything and then make a choice for myself. And that's how I ended up deciding that transportation planning is the one that I want, because I kind of agree to what John said. Like, it's a field where you can actually see how the change has been implemented, and you can see how people have been benefited from it. That's something that I like. And continuing on that passion, currently I'm working on a project with the same institute's alumni competition, where we are assessing Toronto's bike shares expansion in the outside downtown core, because we want to look into equity basis and how bike share can be a mode of how bike share can substitute the transit needs in those areas, and that can indirectly reduce congestion caused by the public transit that's already in there. So yeah, I'm working around these kind of things. And it's really a pleasure to meet all of you guys. I'm not very a technical person, although my background is engineering, but I really like to try out various opportunities.
That's great. And like, there's the technical side of all our jobs. There's the people side. There's the management side. I mean, it's part of our everyday, right? Trying to figure out. So I'll start from that point. So James, can you do a typical week? Just a few quick How much computer, how much remodeling, how many humans do you actually talk to outside your team? Like just do a little, like, because this is about typical engineering planning jobs. So try something, try an example.
Sure. So, man, where to start? I am a consultant, so working in private industry, working for mostly cities, municipalities, and the province of British Columbia in my case, quite a bit. And so at any given moment, I'm involved in, I don't know, 20, 30 projects potentially, and maybe 10 or so more intensely, just depending on what's going on. And yeah, so a lot of just meeting with the team, connecting with people on a daily basis, working on different things, and projects kind of, have cycles to them, I guess. Right now I'm writing a lot of proposals, which is a whole other part of consulting, the business side of it. And so that's a big part of what I'm doing these last couple of weeks for sure. And then, yeah, it's meeting internally with your team, with your firm, other partners and sub-consultants, meeting with the client. Then ultimately, as you work your way through the project, various types of engagement with stakeholders, different agencies, and the public often. So yeah, I would say my day is, it's changed over time. I'm mostly doing this, like honestly, like talking in front of a screen for the last few months has been kind of in my life. It used to be more in person, of course, but that's a lot of what I'm doing, and I really enjoy that. I mean, I think everyone's kind of touched on different ways, but why I got into transportation, why I love it, is because it's about people. It wasn't sort of this, I love the science and the technical side, but it's not about this sort of like some inanimate kind of thing. It is about people and about things that affect people on a daily basis. So that's what I like about it. It's a lot of computer time, although I would say that's a little bit of a product of COVID.
Sure.
It's, wasn't always like that for sure. Yeah.
But it's definitely, you would have started a lot of modeling, lot of
So my background in this, so I graduated in New Brunswick, like Kate mentioned, and I went to the US, worked in a company in New York City, and I lived in New Jersey. And it was actually a modeling job. So I worked for, there was like 20 of us that just did modeling. And so it was deep kind of technical work, super interesting in its own way. Learned a lot that I still, make use of, many years later. But definitely it was a time and place for me. I remember thinking like, you know what, I think I've gone deep enough here, and I'm ready to kind of expand a little bit, and that's kind of what led me to where I am today. And yeah, it's a mixed bag. I used to be kind of more in front of the computer doing all the analysis and everything. A little bit less of that now, but not completely. It's always remained part of my work, and I like that. I do like to be able to dive into things and get the spreadsheet out and and work on things.
And Raphael, I know you sort of told your story of how your job today, but could you take that too, a little bit of what were you doing in school and what your day is like now in a transportation field? So a little bit of the technical side, because I'm trying to pull out like because that seems to be a theme, right? Like the policy that Drishya, you said it yourself, like that other side, but there's the technical. You're sitting there every day doing the technical work and then looking for those skills that you're building. So Raphael, do you want to talk a little bit more?
Okay. Maybe I'm going to drift a little bit back to where I'm coming from in transportation, because at the moment I'm actually going to be changing jobs from being an electronic control system technologist back to traffic assessment technologies, where I'll be assessing roads, things like site planning, the safety of road crossing, and things involving traffic flow, congestion, parking signs, which will will involve taking data, making analysis of traffic data to improve transportation safety and to see how, if necessarily, that will involve some road safety measures, and which will bring me back to things like road safety countermeasures. Because after you implemented the road safety condition and all those, you have to see if that is actually effective enough, if it's causing any things that will be affecting the road in a bad way, to improve the flow of traffic. Not just necessarily put the road safety measures there, but you still have to see that improve the flow of traffic. So this will involve me writing reports, responding to complaints of residents, how to actually show my customer service, how to relate with the public. And because I've done that before while I was working with Brampton Transit, you have to respond to the customers, what they want, how they want it, if it can actually be done that way for them to be happy, for their satisfaction. Something like in Brampton Transit involve installing a new bus stop, moving a bus stop, telling the transit users if that bus stop is closed, what we are doing, what is happening, if there are new road, if there are new diversion for routes, because during the summer they have to change the routes for the summer time. Then during the winter they have to change it again for winter time, because it involves how much traffic is moving at that particular time. So it involves a lot of responding to customers, and that will show how much interpersonal relationship you can actually show. If you were in this position, how would you want it? So that's where I'm at now. So moving from electronic control system technology back to traffic assessment technology.
Yeah, and there's a lot in what Raphael just talked about, because decisions are made for so many reasons, right? The priorities of a city, what the model says, a human that called and complained, what a counselor said, right? Like those all have to be unpacked. And then organizations like TAC and CITE are always trying to study those. He mentioned road safety countermeasures. Someone looking for a job that knew what those were would give you an edge in your resume, because that's terminology used in the workplace. But also that world of sort of how decisions get made, because it's not the same as, it's not as simple as like the bus stop is here. We know there's a million variables of, is it connected with a sidewalk? Is there a shelter? Is there room for a shelter, right? Where does the bus pull over? It's amazing how many details run into that. So understanding the city's guidelines, but also its priorities, right? There's a lot in there. So before we go to John, does anyone ask a question of James or Raphael or John, or I can keep going because I can ask John, and then we're going to move on to sort of career path stuff. But there's a lot in here, and I want to give people a chance to talk. Let's see if anyone
There's no
unmutes.
questions. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, John, take us through something, but hit on one of those subjects, right? Either like how road safety is changing in Canada. You can be tested with that question. You deserve that one.
For sure.
Or modeling. You can pick one or the other. Go for it.
Well, as you know, Kate, my history is we ran a transportation safety program company for many, many years. I was fortunate enough I was able to write the FHWA's Road Safety Audit Guide many years ago. So safety is near and dear to my heart. And, I heard Jessica talking about developing surrogates for crashes. I remember when we were developing the Highway Safety Manual, we were looking for those kind of relationships. And I think what James and Jessica talked about is very closely related to how we can pull that together, because, data now is becoming more dynamic. Instead of the static, we had to wait for the reports, and took a couple of years for those reports to come in, and we had to then try and verify them. Nowadays, you get data like instantaneously, and so the relationship between safety and crashes and the conflict studies that we used to do becoming more and more real. So I'm getting really excited about where this is going, because you look at a lot of the programs we do, and Kate, sort of getting back to the priorities of our clients, tying things together. There's no question in my mind that these Vision Zero programs and whatnot that are coming out are really driving the need for intimate data, timely data, and decision making that is evidence based. So a lot of good stuff that I'm hearing today is sort of headed in that direction, and I really get excited about that. I don't know if you want to talk about my day, but my marketing, I spend about 60% of my day just or my week, let's say, trying to develop marketing strategies, writing proposals, trying to stay ahead of the industry a little bit, so that when we deliver projects, they're meaningful. And it's quite a challenge today, for sure.
Yeah, I guess the question comes from like, what type of skills? We're going to have engineers that do stay at a computer all day, and people throughout their career will remain. I remember once we called someone a professor, right? But like the technical expert that doesn't hit into the marketing, doesn't worry about sort of keeping everyone else busy. They stay the technical expert, but that is actually really rare, right? We have to be writers. We have to be like in a small talk in a room. We have to be able to hold people's attention for a 3-hour technical meeting and try and get a decision out of it. So there's a lot of roles. So in this last bit, it's not just necessarily our career paths, because they were different economies and they were not COVID, but let's just talk about, and this is sort of for you, Drishya, like we talked about planning and engineering, right? We talked about PNGs and MCIP RPPs. So do you want to just ask that question to this group? If you want to open that up, and in general for all of us, just finding your path out of school into the market, and we'll use that as the theme where we wrap up.
Right. So my basic question to even Kate and to all of you would be, like, I'm a recent grad. So should I directly jump into, like, for example, in my case, I'm not really fond of modeling and those kind of things. I kind of like the engagement side, the community side. So should I start, although despite of that, should I just start with a technical job just to increase my skills, or should I focus into something that I actually like? So this is the kind of question I always struggle. And even during the application of jobs, I'm always struggling, like, should I even apply for it? I don't know if I'll be good at it. So those are the kind of questions I would like to ask you guys.
I'm not hogging. I could answer. I want to open it up to somebody else.
I can maybe start then. I think, I mean, it's probably what's right for you. So, I mean, finding a job that you enjoy is always going to be a good place to start, because I mean, for me, when we are looking for people and making hiring decisions, enthusiasm is like a huge factor. I want people to enjoy what they're doing, to be excited about it, to want to learn. I mean, all those things are, way more important than the grades you got or the courses you took, that kind of thing. That being said, I think I wouldn't shy away from any opportunities. I mean, I think if there's an opportunity to work at something, a little bit outside of what maybe you think you enjoy the most or where you want to go, especially if you can find some link to where your passion really is, I think that's always a learning experience. It's always an opportunity. And I think if you look at it that way, you just sort of build up your kind of knowledge and your experience around kind of maybe where your focus might be. And then you never know what you're going to be interested in and what might kind of, grab you. And, that's my sort of general advice is always just like take opportunities and make the most of them. And you know what, it's okay to move on if it's not right. But as long as you learn something from it, it's always of value. It's never, wasted time. And whether that's, moving to a place that you didn't really know about, which I've done a few times. I didn't ever plan to be in the West Coast, but, kind of came out here and gave it a shot and, been here and have kids and have no plans of leaving. So that's worked out. Whether it's a position, you can always learn something from it. And I think that's a huge part of what you should do. And you never know where your career is going to take you.
And I think it's much more fluid than you might think. There's a lot of engineers that really are planning brains. Maybe they didn't go to planning school and get the letters, right? There's a lot of engineers that move between. There's a lot of planners that run engineering jobs because they're very good at people. So they do very well with the planning hat, but leading quite a technical engineering project because you're pulling all these teams. So it's not so one, the other. At the same time though, and it's not just a plug for CITE, but that's a great place. It's called engineer in the title, but there's a lot of planners in there and they're very welcome. And it's part of it all, right? And so you can find your way. Engineers do a lot of engagement, so it's not reserved for planners. It's amazing, but it comes out of who you are, right? So you will find your way in a company with the type of personality. I would be that example. I was always a people person. So that's the way I found my way through that path, right? It's the same with private public sector. I still think people have a bit of a love of private or because of sort of, I still say it's the hustle side that exists there in the private sector. But it's really great to try both too, if that can open up your world. So it's exciting to come through that master's and your undergraduate in civil. But we also, and I said this when we met, the PEng thing is awful valuable. So we can't lie, it is those few letters, right? They do help. So there's something in that too. So Jessica, Abir, if I see your mic come off, jump in here. Otherwise, we'll keep chatting about sort of past, and then we'll wrap it up in a bit. John seems to want in.
I just want to say, no matter where you land, put your hand up. I think it gets back to James's comment. We look for enthusiasm, and if there's something that comes up wherever you're working that you really think that you'd like to get involved with, let it be known, because otherwise people just assume, that you're happy doing what you're doing. It never hurts to put your hand up and say, I'm interested in something different.
So Abir, do you have a question?
Yeah, I have some questions. Like, as John, I have some question for John. Like, he's working in the transportation safety. So, as I have also worked in some projects like transport safety, like, I'm very interested in that field. But the job postings, like, there are very few jobs in the transportation safety. So I just wanted to know, like, what's the scenario of the safety in Canada right now, and do you see a good future in this field?
Yeah, I do. There's, since I've been involved, there's sort of been two sides of safety. There's one, the statistical calculations that, you look at the records and you do network screening and you do trend analysis. And so there's going to always be work in that analysis side. When we started out doing that kind of work, we relied on statisticians, but I'm thinking more and more as Kate's mentioned, that having an understanding of the infrastructure itself is more important than just being able to run stats numbers. So there's that side. And then there's the other side is the practical side, the road safety audits. It's being able to understand in almost a future look of what a roadway is going to look like, or the infrastructure is going to look like when people start using it, whether it's a car, a truck, a bus, a bicycle, or a pedestrian. what are they going to experience? And so there's these two dynamics. You can become a specialist in one area, and I think Jessica, with her analysis that she's doing regression analysis, really would lend to sort of that side of things. But someone who's actually been in the field, been a design engineer, seeing how things unfold, what's the length of need for a guide rail? Do you really need that? Are they in the right place? Are the end treatments proper? Are pedestrians going to be able to be protected properly? I think there's no end. And the reason I get excited about the safety side of things is there's a lot of money goes out to the health industry. And more, it's going to be about prevention as opposed to cures. And I think a lot of the trauma that we experience, whether it's fatalities or injuries, it's going to be more and more interest in trying to reduce the number of times people end up in the hospital. And we've made some great strides, but there's a long way to go yet. So I think this industry, if you can't find it today, I think it's a growth side of our industry. So you're going to find lots of opportunity.
I would say,
Sorry.
John, though, that a posting doesn't have to have road safety in it. You put a paragraph in a cover letter that you understand road safety, you're going to be more likely picked up for a design job, any job. And in requests for proposals, when cities post them, road safety analysis is appearing more and more and more and more. And either you get a certain, like a specialist firm, but it's appearing, it's in everything now. So I don't think you have to look for a road safety job.
No, I was just telling that most of the jobs which I see online, like they're looking for traffic, like traffic engineer, like planner. They're specified like planner,
Sure.
traffic operation. Like, but for the safety, I see very few compared to the other fields. Like they have very few job postings in Canada for the safety.
Yeah. And then I would say the new road safety professional level 1, I think more and more people are grabbing that to help differentiate themselves. But I think just honestly, yeah, there you go. John needs a credential. So I think any language on road safety, honestly, Abir, it would help in any job posting. Like, honestly, even the recent one in Mississauga, active transportation coordinator, talks about road safety, right? So we're going to wrap up soon in fairness to time, and we've stayed through this. We've made it through second episode, first time with this model of all our faces. We've all held smiles for 45 minutes. So Jessica, I'm so impressed with you the few times we've met. So it seems wrong. So I'm going to put you on the spot, but you're leaving, you're finishing school, you're thinking about the next step. Do you want to ask a question or just sort of carry this last piece forward on sort of what you think about picking paths forward?
Yeah, I guess for most transportation engineers, part of our job is going to be public engagement and actually talking with the public, going to public consultations and that sort of thing. From my experience in co-op terms and from watching TV, I'm not sure if you are familiar with the TV show Parks and Recreation, where it's about a bunch of public servants and they have to engage with the public. And most of the time, they're very angry, regardless of what you're doing. So do you guys have any experience or any advice for when you have to maybe deal with a hostile public?
Yeah.
What you can do to kind of placate them and still get your message across?
I have my favorite list, but anybody else want to go?
I'll go.
Okay.
When it has to do with public engagement, first thing first that I always do is always make the residents or the individual to feel they're in control, and I apologize for what you're doing, and I also let them know that you're doing this for their own safety, and give them a reason, maybe just a base reason for what you're doing. And if they're not satisfied, you can actually give them an opportunity to give the city a call if you're working for the city, or give your supervisor a call that you're doing the best of your ability. But you have to put them like they are supposed to be in control. Like the business accounting people always say that customer is always right. So they are kind of the customer in this position. So they are right facially until you finish what you're doing. That's what I think.
Okay.
I
Anybody
have
else?
one question to end this topic. Like, as you're telling that if you just telling them that we're doing for their good, but even after that, if they don't agree, like they don't happy with the decisions, then how do you manage the public? Like, even if they don't understand, like it's for their safety, it's for their betterment, then how do you tackle that situation? Like, you have to do the project, then how do you tackle it?
Okay.
Yeah, like
let's just do one quick thing. Let's unpack that a little bit. It's not always about making everyone happy, and a public meeting is not about, if we always made everyone happy, we would continue to do nothing. So it's not actually about. So the other little piece to unpack there is listening. Like sometimes engagement is literally listening and trying not to put on all your own perceptions and decisions on them, like actually giving them a chance. Right? And sometimes someone could hate bikes, but they care about kids getting to school safely. So you just listen, right? So there's a lot in what Raphael just said about the customer is right, but the result is not making everyone happy. That we can unpack that all we want. So it's an interesting question of the technical balance, political balance, it's a huge part of our job, right? So James, you unmuted. Do you want to
Sure.
add?
Yeah, I was just going to say, you know, public engagement, participation, a huge part of what we do. And, you know, in the past, there was a bit more willingness from cities and different agencies to just do things regardless of what people thought. And that doesn't really happen anymore. There's much more of an expectation that at the very least, you know, we're going to go through a process and listen. You know, usually take in that feedback to some degree before we move forward. And yeah, I would say that, and there's training and resources and all kinds of things you can do on this, but kind of to what Kate was just saying, you know, one of the key things I've latched onto is actually just being honest about the process and what, you know, people's engagement actually is going to mean. And sometimes you are just telling people what's happening. And, you know, in BC here, we have wildfires, and that's the example I always give is sometimes you're just telling people you have to evacuate your house. And we're not like doing a survey, like, you know, like it is just, you know, you need to do this right now. But sometimes we are asking for feedback, and maybe that kind of commitment is, you know, we're going to consider that along with a lot of other things. You may not get your way, but we are definitely going to listen to your perspective. Sometimes you are actually putting the decision in someone's hands. You might have a committee or something, or you know, a referendum where you say, you know what, like this is up to you, like whatever, you know, you who we've identified as the public or the community decide is what's going to happen. So it's really about being honest with that, and then listening. Like my biggest sort of like tip or trick is like, no matter what somebody's issue is, like you listen to it, like you carefully and take interest in it. You know, I've done many public engagements where, especially if I think there's going to be a lot of people there, of actually getting the city that I'm working with to actually bring some more general kind of people there, so that if I'm doing my bike lane project and somebody's complaining about garbage collection, I can just sort of be like, hey, like, great point. You know, I'm sure that's super important. There's somebody else who could help with that. Because often, you know, garbage collection and snow clearing and, you know, those are the things that people care about, and they just see it as an opportunity to bring it up. So as opposed to kind of dismissing it as being not important, you sort of, you know, listen to it, maybe redirect it towards something else, and stay focused on what you're trying to work through.
And James, I looked at his LinkedIn. He has it's IAP2 training, which he would just pass the exam with that summary answer that you gave. And so since this is about tips, that's one resource to check out. That's a resource that's often used. There's so much you just said there too, right? Like someone can come to a meeting angry. Once it was that the hedge had been not trimmed. So they came in angry, and that is what they wanted to talk about. Nothing to do with the project. So there can be so many interactions. It's a lot about your character, how you carry yourself, how you plan, how you communicate what the event is. Also, we need to change how we do events, right? We all know that. COVID is challenging us to change. We need to change who gets time at the mic, who wants to speak at a mic, and that kind of sharing of information. We all know that. But what a huge part of our job, right, is that the information that we present, what we do with that information, and then the recommendations we make, right, to cities, and the policies we write that affect those recommendations, right? Because when cities develop policies, we're trying to actually implement them. So everyone's been generous with their time. John, you had your mic off. Do you want a quick, because you've done a few meetings in your time, or are we good there with
I just wanted to echo a lot of the comments about listening and being honest. And what I found is, a lot of the public come with certain expectations, and if you give them false hope on things that they get, their reaction is even worse. And so being honest with them about what you can accomplish and why you can accomplish it means a lot to them. And one of the reasons I really enjoyed my relationship with the community at East York was I gained a trust with the community, that if they came to me, they know I'd listen to them, try and put myself in their place, and trying to develop a program that works best, for our professional standards as well as their community expectations. So that's all I wanted to echo some of the previous comments. Thanks.
But Jessica, thanks for that, because obviously, honestly, we could keep going for another hour. We haven't even covered, how Raphael is treated, how John's treated, how I'm treated, how James is treated at the same public meeting. We haven't even covered that. Lots of things, right? But a lot of it is a skill and a part of your life. And then it could be in the beginning of the meetings, you're bringing in the boards and you get thrown at one and said, good luck, stand there. And you just, you're honestly there to participate and listen and be an ear. So it's quite the experience to, I don't know, it's a big part of our profession, obviously, because there's this whole moral judgment too on how you travel, how you behave, that's tied to transportation and how we build cities. But it's also really a fun part of what we do if you're sort of willing to live in that sphere of public engagement. So that's kind of perfect place to end. So for everybody, continue to reach out. You have other questions, follow up. Thank you for coming today. This will be posted online, and we'll see what other kind of conversation we get going. So thank you everybody.